Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Weekly Roundup. Myself Nilesh, and I will be taking this session. In this session, we will cover important development of the last week. Before we start today's session, let's see the headlines of the week. In this session, we will cover 5 main news, 1 personality news, and 7 quick updates. In main news, first main news is about removal of the Lok Sabha speaker. Second main news is about mental health crisis in India. Third main news is about antimicrobial resistance as the World Economic Forum launched the Davos Compact regarding it. Then fourth main news is about consumer price index, and fifth main news is about 50 years of bonded labor system abolition act 1976. In personality news we'll cover Swami Dayanand Saraswati. So without wasting any time, let's start the first main news of the day. The first main news of the day is regarding the removal of the Lok Sabha speaker. This topic is very important for GS paper 2, that is parliament, its structure and functioning. As there is debate going on regarding the Lok Sabha speaker and his partiality towards the treasury benches as alleged by the opposition parties. We will not go in the politics of it, and many times I see students discussing these political things without actually having knowledge of the basic tenets and the constitutional and legal provisions. So I will advise student not to indulge in such kind of topics and just focus on the what is important for our examination, that is important for us. So let's start the discussion of the topic. So what is the development? So development, as we already discussed, that the opposition have moved the resolution for the removal against the Lok Sabha speaker, that is Om Birla. And this is not the first time in the history that such resolution have been moved. In previously, there are 3 instances in the Indian parliamentary system where there have been resolution against the Lok Sabha speaker for his or her removal. So which are those instances? So, firstly, that was the G.V. Malvankar in 1954. As all of us know, that the G.V. Malvankar was the first Lok Sabha Speaker of independent India. He was also a Speaker of the Central Legislative Assembly after the adoption of the Constitution. Right. So that is about the G.V. Malvankar. Then Sardar Hukum Singh in 1966, and then Balram Jakhar in 1987. Please remember that Balram Jakhar was the longest serving Lok Sabha speaker. So he was the longest serving Lok Sabha speaker from 1980 till 1989. So this is the interesting fact, please remember that. And none of them were actually removed from their post, because please understand, Lok Sabha speaker is generally from the treasury benches, and if the Lok Sabha speaker is removed, which means that there is lack of confidence in the government. So it is a sign that the government is stable or not. So this is generally just a move to raise the issue. And what is the issue here? Issue is that opposition is alleging that the Lok Sabha speaker is not impartial, and why Lok Sabha speaker should be partial, and what are the best practices in the world, we will see in the upcoming slides. Right. So this is about the background. So now we will see the procedure for the removal of the Lok Sabha speaker. Before we start seeing the procedure for the removal of the Lok Sabha speaker, please remember that in previous year Vice President of India also resigned, and that is why this topic becomes very important. When you prepare such kind of topic, please remember that you can make such kind of tables, and in these tables you can raise various functionaries such as Lok Sabha speaker, vice president and president, their appointment procedure, their age, their qualification, all kind of things, and by this way you can quickly revise the things. In this case, we'll see that speaker are appointed under Article 93 of the Constitution, and this appointment is by the simple majority. What is the simple majority? So simple majority means the majority of the members present and voting. That is the simple majority, and they are appointed by the simple majority. In the case of the president, what is the electoral college? So elected member of parliaments plus electoral state legislative assembly members actually vote for the president. However, in the case of vice president, all the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha MPs, right, member of parliament actually vote for the uh, vice presidential election. However, the state legislative assembly members do not vote in the appointment of the vice president. So this is the brief background. Now we will see about the removal. In the case of removal of the speaker and the vice speaker, the majority is effective majority. What is the effective majority? So there is total membership, for example 250 for the Rajya Sabha. However, there will be some members, some seats will be vacant, and for that consideration, let's consider the membership is 230. So this is the effective membership, and the majority of this effective membership is required for the removal of the speaker and the speaker from his or her seat. Also, for the president, there is need of the effective majority, but this resolution can only be initiated in the Rajya Sabha. So this proposal will be initiated only in Rajya Sabha, and then it will be transferred to the Lok Sabha, and if Lok Sabha approves it by the simple majority, vice president can be removed. So this is the case of the vice president. But in the case of speaker, the resolution need not to pass by the Rajya Sabha at all. So please remember this fact. In the case of president, there is different majority, and what is that majority? 2/3 of the total membership of the both the houses independently. So both the houses with their total membership and 2/3 majority can remove the president with the resolution. So this is about the president, vice president, then Lok Sabha speaker and deputy speaker, right? Now we will see what are the procedure regarding the Lok Sabha speaker. We have already discussed. So this is article 94. In the case of the vice president, article is 67. Please remember these article. And in the case of the president, the article is 61. So this is about the constitutional provisions, and as we already discussed, article 94 talks about the removal of the speaker and vice deputy speaker, and according to the article 94C, member holding the speaker or the deputy speaker of the Lok Sabha may be removed from the office by the resolution of the House of the people passed by the majority of all then members of the House. So all that time members means the effective majority. So this is the procedure for the removal of the speaker from the Lok Sabha. Now we will see the detailed procedure regarding it. And what is the detailed procedure regarding it? So firstly, the member wishing to give the notice or the resolution for the removal of the speaker or the deputy speaker has to do it in writing to the Secretary General of Lok Sabha, right? This is the one thing. And then this resolution must be supported by 50 members in the House for the admission. In the case of the president, this is 1/4 of the membership. So 1/4 of the membership of the House have to acknowledge the resolution, right? So this is the difference. Then such resolution for the removal of the officials can be moved unless at least 14 days notice is given. So there is a 14-day notice given to the speaker or the deputy speaker, and even the case of the vice president of the India. And after such notice is received, the motion for the leave to move the resolution has entered in the list of the businesses, right? Please remember one of the fact that speaker status during the discussion for his removal cannot preside over the House. So there is Article 96, which state that the speaker cannot reside while the discussion is going on for his removal. Right. So this is also very important topic, and it is given in the constitution itself. However, he have right to speak, take part in the proceeding, and even he can vote for the first instance and not the casting vote. So like a ordinary MP, he can vote, but not the casting vote. Casting vote means when there is equal votes in both the parties, or the in both the fractions, then speaker can vote the casting vote. But in this instance where his removal proceeding is going on, he cannot cast the casting vote. That is the difference. Also, please remember that speaker is not there give resignation to the president, but he write his resignation to the deputy speaker, and deputy speaker write his resignation to the speaker and not the president. So please remember this fact also. So this is about the removal procedure of the speaker. Now please understand that there is one important point. So this debate of the partiality of the speaker is there, and because speaker have a lot of powers regarding the constitutional provisions, so post of the speaker becomes very important, such as speaker actually act as an important factor in the schedule 10, the disqualification of the MPs, right? So there is a power. Also, speaker need to be impartial, and in this case we can give the example of the UK Parliament. In United Kingdom, the speaker has to resign from his party to become the speaker of the house, and when he resign from the party, he is guaranteed this seat of MP in the next parliament. So without contesting election, he becomes the MP. Because he is not indulging in the party politics, it might be very difficult for him to be get elected, and that is why this provision is there. And even if the speaker wants to continue as a speaker in the next parliament also, he can actually do that, and by this way he is not affiliated to any political party, and he can work non-partisan way. So this is the good practice regarding it. In India also we can implement such kind of things, because in India there are lot of stakes of the MPs. MP can seek for the various constitutional posts, such as governor post or the ministerial post in the next parliament. So there will be always bias of the speaker towards the treasury benches or his original party. Also, he is a member of the party, even if he is a speaker. That is not the case in the case of the UK. He has to resign from the party. So these are the some of the differences. You can actually quote such kind of practices in your answer. So this is all about the Lok Sabha speaker, his removal procedures, and the nitty-gritties about it. Now we'll see the question regarding it. So there is first question regarding it. Please see this question. With reference to the speaker of the Lok Sabha, consider the following statement. Which of while any resolution for the removal of the speaker of the Lok Sabha is under consideration, first, she shall not preside. As we already discussed, that is correct. Then she shall not have the right to speak. So this is not correct. He have the right to speak. Then she shall not be entitled to vote for the resolution in the first instance. So he have the right to vote in the first instance. In this case, the right answer is only one. So this is about this question. Now we'll see the next question regarding it. Please see this question and try to solve this question at your home and give the answer. I have also given some other question regarding the speaker. Please try to solve these questions also. So this is about the first main news. Now we'll see second main news of the day. Second main news of the day is regarding the mental health crisis in India. as both economic survey and the union budget speaks about it and have the various provisions and suggestions regarding it. We will see what are those provisions and suggestions given by the economic survey and the budget meanwhile in the discussion. This is very important for your GS paper 2, that is issues related to health, right? And this is very important for your examination also. There have been questions regarding the mental health and the crisis in the life of modern woman. So in that aspect this topic becomes very important. So let's see the background. As we already discussed what is the background, so this issue have been highlighted by the economic survey and the budget. What is the mental health? So according to WHO, World Health Organization, mental health is the state of mental well-being and that enables people to cope with the stress of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well. So this is the broad definition of the mental health. So mental health is very important as you are preparing for the UPSC. There is always stress upon you, there is always pressure to work and study, and in these circumstances in your life also mental health problems can be there. And in India particularly mental health is not seen with the empathy at all. I i know 3 4 languages, and all those 3 4 languages mental health is actually a cuss word. So basically generally we say that the lunatic, then we say pagal. So all these things we actually use as the curse word, but this is the disease. So when you don't have the mental stability, that is disease. But in India we don't see mental illness as a disease, but we see it as a curse word. So that is the problem and societal challenge tackling the mental illness and the mental health abilities in the India. This is the big background. So in this context, please remember that the WHO first Director General, and his name was the Brock Chisholm, and he says that for the good physical health, good mental health is very important. You can quote such things in your exam, in your introductory lines, in your answer. So for the good mental health, good for the good physical health, sorry, good mental health is very important. And in India we have to have the awareness regarding the mental health issues in the India. As there is urbanization growing on, the families are shrinking, people don't have enough people to share their emotions, and there is constant pressure regarding the economic and then even the academic performance. And in these scenarios mental health is very important day by day. So this is the brief background about it. Now we will see mental health scenario in India. So what is the mental health scenario in India? So let's see the prevalence. Around 10% of the adults in India are suffering from the mental disorders as per the National Mental Health Survey data of the 2015-2016. When you give such data, try to write the name of the reports or the survey in the bracket, so that the examiner will have the idea from where you are quoting such data, right? So this is the one thing. Secondly, there are infrastructure gaps. What is the infrastructure gaps? In India, psychiatric population is around 0.7% per 1 lakh population, and as per WHO this should be around 3%. Also when you are going to psychiatrist, people will consider that you have lost your mind totally. So people don't understand there are different problems related to mental health, and it should be seen with the empathy and not with the some social stigma. Also in India, the hospitals regarding the mental health are not even called as a hospitals, they are called as lunatic asylum, and the treatment there are very unhuman or inhuman, right? So there is need to change in the structural, societal and even the legal framework regarding it. So that is the one aspect. Then there are significant economic losses due to the lack of importance given to the mental health. And what is that data? So around 1.3 trillion between 2012 to 2030 as per WHO. Sorry, 1.03 trillion, around 1 trillion dollars are lost due to the mental health crisis, right? So this is also a very significant point. Then there is prevalence of suicides. So around 1.7 lakh suicides happened in 2023 as per the National Crime Records Bureau. That is very huge number because of the mental health. And we have already discussed various cases regarding it. Supreme Court constituted national task force regarding it in the case such as Abeda Tadvi and in Amit Kumar, right? In both these cases, one of the important issue of the suicide was the mental health crisis and the stress in the educational system and education institutions, and also societal discrimination between the students and in society overall. That is the one of the aspect for the lack of mental health and the mental health problems in India, right? So this is the societal and even the institutional problem as well. Then there is rising digital addiction. So economic survey talks about rising digital addiction, and it is saying that the addictive behavior linked to digital devices such as smartphone, gaming and social media addictions due to the near universal mobile internet connectivity, right? You might have seen the videos where when you take the mobile from the children, they are behaving like uh, they have lost the control. Sometimes there are cases of suicide and erratic behavior by the youngsters and the adolescents, and this is the case that this is the new kind of addictive behavior. I have recently seen in the news that there is anti-addictive digital center is there, and the problem is real. So this is about the health, mental health scenario in India. Now we'll see various impact of the poor health. And first is that physical health, as we already discussed that point. Then there is societal relationship and strengths between the various communities, families and the family members, right? And then there is social stigma, as we already discussed. The mental health problem is seen so negatively that people tend to hide it, and then there will be depression and all kind of anxiety within the people, and particularly young people, right? And then vulnerability of the young people because of the stress of the education and the other performance related stress and the anxieties. So this is about the overall mental health scenario in India, right? Now we'll see various key initiatives taken by the government to tackle this issue. And first is that the Niemans Act 2012, which declares National Institute of Mental Health and the Neurosciences, which is situated in Bengaluru, as the Institute of National Importance. Please remember that this was constituted in 1974, and it is around 51-year old, right? So in this context, it is very important and question can be asked regarding this. And then Union Budget recently said that there will be Niemans 2.0 upgrading the national mental health institutes in Ranchi and Tejpur. In this regard, this is very important and significant development. Question directly can be asked, and you can directly quote such kind of data and facts in your answer, right? Then there is National Suicide Prevalence Strategy, that is very important, and it was launched in 2022. Then there is financial protections through such as the Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. In this scheme, there is insurance of 5 lakh rupees to the families, right? So this is also very important, and it covers the mental health problem also, right? And then there is a right of Person with the Disabilities Act, which also expanded the definition and disability, which includes the mental illness. Then there is also various initiatives such as Telemanas. Please remember that this initiative is very important and UPSC can ask the question. The name of the initiative is National Tele Mental Health Program, also called as Telemanas. So please remember this name. And there are various initiatives such as Mental Health Care Act 2017 and National Health Policy 2017. These act and the policy also talks about the mental health and the precautions should be taken regarding the it. So this is all about the development about the mental health, various institutional mechanisms related to it. Now we will see the previous year question asked regarding it. The first question is about explain why suicide among the young women is increasing in Indian society. So there are various causes regarding it. So academic pressure, there is loneliness, then there are family problems, all kind of things you can write, economic, social, political issues. So you can segregate your points under these broad headings and can write the answer. Then see this second question, appreciate the local community level healthcare intervention in persecution of the achieving the health for all in India. So how local health infrastructure can help to tackle the mental health, you can write such kind of a point and directly question can be asked regarding it. So this is all about the second main news. Now we will see the third main news of the day. So third main news of the day is regarding the antimicrobial resistance, which is also called as AMR. And what is the development? So World Economic Forum have launched the Davos Compact regarding the antimicrobial resistance 2025. This topic is very important for GS paper 2, that is issues related to health. So let's start the discussion related to it. What is the background? As we already discussed, World Economic Forum have launched the compact, and this compact is also supported by Unified Coalition for the AMR Response. It is also known as UCARE, right? And who is propounding the UCARE? So it is the United Nations strategy and it is by the various United Nations organs such as WHO, UN Environmental Program, FAO. So these organizations are actually promoting the UCARE for the Unified Coalition for the AMR Response. That is the one thing. And what is the purpose? So purpose is that to raise the finance from both public and the private sector and reduce the global AMR deaths. And what is the target? Saving more than 100 million lives by the 2050. So this is the background. Regarding it, please remember this report, and the name of the report is Global Antibiotic Resistance Surveillance Report 2025. And UPSC generally asks the question that who released the report. So this report is released by the World Health Organization. Please remember this fact. Directly question can be asked regarding the who released the report, and the answer is WHO. This is the brief background of the discussion. Now we will see about the AMR. What is the AMR? So when you were a child, you might be remember that there were some coils and some liquids we used to repel the mosquitoes, and those coils were very effective. But today when we apply those coils and the liquids in our houses, mosquitoes are not going or not dying. And why it is happening? Because over the period of time, mosquitoes have discovered and create resistance for such kind of coils and the liquids. Now they are resistant to these liquids, and those liquids and coils are ineffective. Similar manner, in our body there are various pathogens, viruses, bacteria and all that, and over the period of time we take various medicines. And what happens? Because we take medicines, those bacteria become resistant to that medicine, and in future when we take that medicine it does not work. That is exactly the phenomena of antimicrobial resistance, right? So what is the definition? So it occurs when bacteria, viruses, fungi and parasites no longer respond to antimicrobial medicines such as antibiotics, antivirals, antifungis, and making them ineffective. That is the AMR, and it is the natural process. How it is natural process? So when you are baby, you take some medicine, then you become child, you take some medicine, in your adulthood you take some medicine, and over the period of time your body and the parasites in your body become resistant to that medicine. Then what you do? You take higher powerful medicines to cure that diseases. This is the case. So antibiotics have the level 1 antibiotic, level 2 antibiotic, level 3 antibiotic, such kind of levels are there. And when your body become resistant to level 1, then doctor gives you level 2 antibiotic. By the end of the life cycle, there are generally no antibiotic or the medicine works on your body, because the bacteria and fungi in your body are resistant to many of the antibiotics. So that is the one problem, right? It is the natural process, but it is also accelerated by the human activities. How is it accelerated by the human activities? Firstly, when you fall ill, what you do? You don't go to the doctor, you go to the medical owner. And what they do? They give you powerful antibiotic, for example, level 3, because you want to feel good and he want to show you the result. And by that case what happens? Your body become resistant to level 1, level 2 antibiotics also. And when there is a need, your body doesn't respond. When there will be a critical life crisis in your life, the medicine do not work on your body. So this is the one aspect. Then secondly, what happens? There is pollution, and these industries, antibiotics are sent in the water, and you consume that water and there is antibiotic resistance. Then also you use chicken, mutton, all those things, even dairy products, and animals are also given antibiotics. And when animals are given antibiotics, those antibiotics come in your body, and your body becomes intolerant to the various pathogens. Sorry, pathogens becomes intolerant to various medications in your body. So these are the some of the issues regarding it. Then what is the status in India? So around 6 lakhs lives are lost per year because of the antibiotic resistance. Particularly this is very rampant in the case of TB. So TB is becoming the problem, and because there is no medicine is working on the TB, and there is antimicrobial resistance particularly regarding the TB. So this is about the AMR and its status in India. Now we will see key issues with rising AMR. And what are the key issues? As we already discussed, spread of drug resistant pathogen. As we already said, because there is spread of drug resistant pathogen, and when there is critical life crisis in your life, the medication do not work in your body. That is the one issue. Then there is spread of resistance genes, which is calling creating silent pandemic. Because please see, there are 6 lakh deaths per year, but we are not aware. So generally when you study UPSC, it is not just for the exam point of view. It is very important in your personal life also, life of you, life of your family, your society. So you have to also apply this thing in your life, that you should be very cautious while taking medicines, and these medicines should not be antibiotic unless and until there is really a need of such medication, right? Then there is impact on the human capital, because that medicine are not working, you will be feeling sick, and because you are be feeling sick, you cannot work properly. There will be effect on your productivity, and if the effect on the productivity, it actually affect the economic development of the country. And then there will be lack of spending in the societal sector such as education, health, and that is the vicious cycle of the lack of health, then lack of education, then it will also affect the economic development. That is also one issue. And then there is economic burden also. The figures are that around 5.2 trillions are lost due to the antimicrobial resistance as per the World Bank. So this is the key issues with rising antimicrobial resistance in the world and in the India. Now we'll see various steps or initiative taken to combat the AMR. And the first is that National Action Plan on AMR 2.0, that will be from 2025 to 2029, and it is the comprehensive approach. It will tackle human, animal, plants and all the natural processes, right? Then there is first indigenous antibiotic which is developed by India, and the name of that antibiotic is napithromycin. Please remember that. And it was launched in 2024. This is also very important, and it actually works for the both typical and atypical drug resistant bacteria. What is the atypical? So bacteria which do not have the cell membrane are called as atypical drug resistant bacteria. This is the second point. Then there is national surveillance network, and what it does, it creates data, collect data and send data to global AMR surveillance system, that is called as GRAS, which is by the WHO. And by this data there will be effective policy implementation regarding the combating the AMR, right? Then there are some of the global initiatives such as Global Action Plan called as GAP on AMR during 2015 under the World Health Assembly, right? Then there is United Nations General Assembly high level meeting on the AMR 2024 to reduce the global deaths, right? And what is its target? So 10% by 2030 against the 2019 as a baseline. And then other initiatives are there such as AWARE, that is Access, Watch and Reserve, and then Red Line awareness campaign. So there are strips on the tablets behind, that is the red strips, which means that is antibiotic. And in case of non-antibiotic tablets there are no strips, such as if you are taking medication such as paracetamol, there will be no strip because paracetamol is not antibiotic. Then there is Operation Amrit, which is launched by the Kerala government. So this is all about the key initiatives taken by the India regarding the AMR resistance. Now we will see previous year question regarding it. And what is the question? Please, this question: which of the following are the reasons for the multi-drug resistance? And the first is genetic predisposition of the some people. Please remember, this is not the genetic disease as we already discussed. So one is wrong. Then second, taking incorrect doses as we already discussed, that is the correct thing. Then using the antibiotic in the livestock farming, it is also discussed by us. And then multiple chronic diseases in some people, that is not the case. So 4 is wrong. What is the answer? B, that is 2 and 3. And same question have been asked by the UPSC in the mains examination. Please try to solve this question, because all the points we discuss in the slides are actually the answer of this question. So try to solve this question at home, right? So this is all about the third main news. Now we will see the fourth main news of the day. So next main news is about consumer price index. And what is the development? So development is that Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation have released the consumer price index with the base year 2024. So the base year was 2012 and it was nearly redundant with the changing necessities and the economics of the country, and that is why the base year have been changed and it is now 2024. This is very important for your GS paper 3, that is government budgeting. So without wasting any time, let's start the discussion. As we already discussed, what is the background? So new base year have been introduced and the data have been published. Also CPI has been revised for representing current household consumption patterns, one, then price structures, two, and then evolving nature of the Indian economy. So this is the need of the change in the base year. And base adoption was done on the basis of latest household consumption expenditure survey 2023-24, which provides comprehensive information regarding what household expenditure patterns across the rural urban areas of the country. And deciding the base year, it is very important that that base year should be stable and there should be no fluctuations in the macroeconomic parameters in the economy. So this is the brief about the information. Now we'll see about what is the consumer price index and its nitty-gritties. So let us discuss the key highlights of the CPI. And what are the key highlights? First is related to inflation. And what is the data? So year on year inflation rate is around 2.75%. That is provisional, and it is generally counted from one financial year month such as January 2026 till January 2025. That is the one thing. Then there is corresponding inflation rate for the rural and urban areas is around 2.73% and 2.77% respectively. Then see the change in the items. So additional new items including OTT subscriptions, rural house rents, value added dairy materials, pen drives, babysitting services, fitness equipments, and the removal of the absolute items like CVR, DVD, tape recorders, etc. So why these base years are changed? So please remember, when we were children, there were Walkmans, there were iPods to listen music. But with the time, your smartphone become such capable that now you can directly hear music from the smartphones only. So such kind of equipment become the redundant. Same is the case with the typewriter, right? So typewriter become the redundant, and because economy is not using those things and new things are added, for example computer in that case, and in this case smartphones and new devices such as wearable devices such as smartwatch and all those things. So economy and its consumptions keep changing, and to keep that track, consumer price index should also take into account various things which are changing to actually calculate the CPI accurately. So this is the thing, and these are the new items included and subtracted from the list. Now we will see about the CPI and various other inflation measurement indexes. So CPI actually keeps the track on the change over the time in the general retail prices of the basket of goods and services. Please remember this thing, purchased by the household for the consumption, right? And who compiles it? So it is compiled by the Ministry of Static and Planning Implementation every month. Please remember this thing also for the rural, urban and the combined sector. So there is this thing, CPI rural, CPI urban and CPI combined. And this CPI combined is used by the RBI for the policy decisions. Please remember this fact also. And what is the formula? So compiling CPI last payers index formula, that is not very important for us, is used, which is based on the three elements. This is very important, and that is base year prices, then base year weights and the current month's prices. So these are the three things which are important for this formula. There are other CPIs also, such as CPI agriculture laborer, CPI rural laborers and CPI industrial laborers, right? And all these CPIs are calculated by the Labor Bureau, which falls under the Ministry of Labor. Please remember this thing also. And these CPIs are important for that particular sectors. Like, so for the industrial laborers to give the dearness allowances, this CPI is very important. For the agricultural laborers and rural laborers, for implementing policies and creating the base wage, these CPIs are very important in that aspect. For the CPI agriculture labor and uh, rural labor, the base year is 2019, right? So these are the basic things you should know. Then there is one more thing you might have heard, that is wholesale price index, right? And wholesale price index and CPI are key parameters. What are the difference between these two? So basically for the wholesale price index, it is compiled by the Office of Economic Advisor, that is falls under the Commerce Ministry. So please remember this fact also. And in the case of CPI, it is used as the policy rate. Then please remember that in WPI, services are not included. In this, services are included, right? That is also one of the important. Then indirect tax, sorry, indirect taxes are not included in the WPI. Indirect taxes are included here in the CPI. So these are the some of the basic differences in it. Also, the food items have the higher weightage in this, in CPI, and food items have the lower weightage in the WPI. That is also one fact which you should always remember. This is CPI, WPI, and basic tenets. That is important. One also thing which I miss, that is for the WPI, what is the base year? Base year is 2011 2012. And for the CPI industrial labor, I said base year is 2017. This is 2016. Please remember that. So this is all about it. Now we'll see important aspect of the development. And what are those aspects? So key methodology changes in the CPI 2024. And what are those changes? So base year have been changed, as we already discussed. It is now 2024. Then number of items have changed. Previously those were 299. Now it is become the 358, right? Then there is online market. So previously it was not covered. Now 12 online markets have been covered, right? Then there is data classification. So groups and subgroups in the line with the classification of the individual consumption according to the purpose 1999. Now divisions, groups, and classification and the subclasses in line with the COI COP 2018, right? Then house rent index compilation. So only in urban areas previously, now in the urban and rural both, excluding the employer provided accommodation. And then there is data dissemination at the state level. So combined index only. Now rural, urban, and combined index, and the inflation also. And then what is the food weightage? So previously it was around 45%. Now it is 36.75%. So this is the key methodology change regarding the CPI and its new base year. So this is all about this news. Now we will see the previous year question. And what is the previous year question? The weightage of the food in the consumer price index is higher than in the wholesale price index, as we already discussed. It is true. Then the WPI does not capture the changes in the prices of services which CPI does. That is also true. Then Reserve Bank of India has now adopted WPI. It is not correct. It have adopted CPI, right? So the answer is A. That is 1 and 2. So this is the one previous year question regarding the CPI. Then there is another previous year question which has been asked. So the question is, the wholesale price index in India is available on monthly basis only. So previously it was available on the weekly basis also, but now it is monthly basis only. This change was done around 2012. So the first statement is correct, that it is monthly basis only. And as compared to the consumer price index for industrial workers, the WPI gives less weight to the food articles. That is also correct. So the both 1 and 2 are the correct. That is the answer. So this is about the fourth main news of the day. Now we'll see fifth main news of the day. So last main news of the day is related to 50 years of Bonded Labor Systems Abolition Act 1976, and this becomes very important for GS paper 2, that is mechanisms, laws for the protection and the betterment of the vulnerable sections. So without wasting any time, let's start the discussion related to it. As we already discussed that it was enacted in February 1976, and Bonded Labor System Abolition Act marked the important milestone in the equality in the Indian society. So this is the brief background about it. Now see the constitutional and legal provisions against the bonded labor. So Article 21, 23 and 34 of the Indian Constitution talks about the bonded labor. Article 21 talks about the liberty. Article 23 talks about the human trafficking and the various kind of forced labors, including bonded labors. And Article 24 talks about the child labor, right? So it actually prohibits all those things. And in Article 23, it is saying that it is punishable by the law. And for that purpose, there are various laws to curb the force and the bonded labor and the trafficking. So Immoral Trafficking Act is there. Then there is Fair Remuneration Act. Then there is this Bonded Labor Abolition Act. So these are the some of the provisions which are made here. Then there is legal provision also, which we already discussed, that the BSLA 1976, then this Immoral Trafficking Act, and then there is also section 143 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, and then which penalizes the trafficking and the forced labors. And there also BSLA 1976, which is also very important in this regard. So please remember this constitutional and legal provisions regarding the bonded labor prohibition and abolition acts, right? Now we will see Bonded Labor Systems Act 1976, and what is it talking about? It completely abolished the bonded labor and it is declared illegal. Then it cancelled all the existing bonded debts and mandated immediate release of the all the bonded labors. Then it is also talking about the protection from the eviction from the freed bonded laborers from the land they are occupying. Then it is also talking about the district level enforcement by the district magistrate and the vigilance committees, right? And it is also talking about the rehabilitation of the bonded laborers. Then, as we already discussed, there is provision for the rehabilitation through the central and the state level programs, right? And there is also provisions of the rescue operations, and there is they have released the lack of laborers till today. So this is about the act and its provisions. The question can be asked and you can easily write these provisions. Those are not very difficult. Now we will see why bonded labor is prevalent in India. So firstly, the persistent poverty, lack of formal contracts and the weak regulation, that is one thing. Then there is kind of societal hierarchy in villages, particularly in some of the Bihar and UP. There is lack of lot of poverty and people are vulnerable to the exploitation by the few who have the resources and the power and money. So that is the one thing. Then there is caste hierarchies, as we already discussed. So lower caste people are vulnerable and they are depressed by the higher caste and the higher class peoples. So data shows only 3 lakh labors were freed or the rehabilitated. So the effectiveness of the bonded labor act is questionable because only 3 lakh people could be released or the rehabilitated under it. Then there is low conviction rates because lack of victim centric approach, and there is chances that those people who exploited these labors will always have the leeway and they can manipulate the victims and the other peoples around them like the witnesses. So that is also one point. What is the conclusion? So it is needed that coordinated strategy combining the legal reforms, robust monitoring and rehabilitation support and societal awareness is essential to eradicate bonded labor, such as school programs and social awareness through media, TV, and even films, right? Then there should be a political will and community participation for the determinants and the eradication of the bonded labor. So this is all about the bonded labor and its issue and the related law provisions. Now we will see relevant question, and the question is that this question is not exactly about the bonded labor in the context of the society, but it is the historical question. And the question is that the forced labor called as Vishti in India during the Gupta period, which one of the following statement is correct? So it was considered the source of income for the state, a sort of tax paid by the people, and this is the correct answer. No need to read or other things. This is the correct answer. Please remember this thing. Then see this question. International Labour Organizations Convention 138 and 182 are related to, and the answer is child labor. So these are the two questions related to bonded labor. Now we will see the next news, that is the personality in news. So personality in news of this week is Swami Dayanand Saraswati. And what is the context? So government have celebrated the birth anniversary of the Swami Dayanand Saraswati ji. Let us see the important contribution of the Swami Dayanand Saraswati ji. So he was born in the state of Gujarat, right? So he was born in Gujarat and he established, as we all know, Arya Samaj in the year 1875. He also opposed various things such as child marriage and the enforced widowhood. So he was in that sense a social reformer, right? Then he was in the favor of education system and he emphasized on the grammar, philosophy, Vedas, but he also emphasized on the science, medicine, music and art also. That is very important. Then he visualized the polity, and his visualization was the decentralized polity, a vast commonwealth with the village as the units. So this is also very important. It is like the concept of the Gram Swaraj only by the Gandhiji, but there are some differences in it. He wanted to have the decentralized commonwealth with the villages as the unit, and then he have made some literary contributions such as Satyartha Prakash, which is the book written by the Swamiji. Then what is the spiritual works? So he put forward the Vedic concept for the Traitavada. And what is the Traitavada? So it is the trinity of the three eternal things, that is Ishvara, then Jiva and then Prakriti. However, there are some of the controversial things by the Arya Samaj, and that is Shuddhi movement, right? So you should remember such kind of things also. He also gave the slogan back to the Vedas. So this is all about the Swami Dayanand Saraswati ji. Now we will start to see the quick updates of the last week. So let's start the quick updates of the last week. The first quick update is about the Tamil Brahmi script. And what is the development? So researchers have found the Tamil Brahmi script in the Valley of Kings, which is in Egypt, which belongs to the 1st and 3rd century CE, which also shedding light on the ancient trade between the southern India and the Egypt. And what is about the Tamil Brahmi script? So it mentions the name of traders in Tamil Brahmi script such as Chikai Koran, which means the crown leader, then Kopan, Katan, and Kiran. And what is about the Koran? So it is also mentioned in the Sangam literature, which is very important for the Tamil polity and the Tamil history, and where a Chera king is directly addressed as a Koran. So Koran is a Chera king. That is very important. Now we'll see about the Tamil Brahmi script. So it is a variant of the Brahmi script used to write the ancient Tamil inscriptions, and the period is around 300 BC to 100 AD, around 400 years. And what is the important contribution in it? So Tirukkural is the important literature in the Tamil Brahmi script, and it is also called as fifth Veda, as it is talking about the philosophy and the ethical and moral principle into the day-to-day life. So this is all about the Tamil Brahmi script. Now we will see the next quick update of the day, and next quick update of the day is the Tea Board of India. And what is the development? So according to the Tea Board of India, India witnessed the highest ever tea export, around 2.80 million kilograms in 2025, right? So this is very significant. This is the highest export of the tree. About the Tea Board of India, which is headquartered in Kolkata. So UPSC generally asks about the headquarter questions, and the Tea Board of headquarter in Kolkata, and it is a statutory body. So it is by the law, and the law, it was instituted in 1954 under the Tea Act of 1953. Please remember this. And which is the ministry? So Ministry of Commerce and Industry is the ministry which is actually controlling the Tea Board of India, right? And about the board, so it comprises of the 31 members, including the chairman, right? Then this board is constituted every 3 years. So board is constituted every 3 years. And what are the key functions? So it provides financial and technical assistance to the cultivators, manufacturers, and even the export promotion. So this is all about the second quick update of the day. Now we'll see third quick update of the day, and the third quick update is about UNSC 1267 Sanctions Committee. And what is the development? So latest UNSC 1267 Sanctions Committee have reported that the Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed, a UN designated terror organization, is linked to the Delhi Red Fort terror attacks. So Jaish-e-Mohammed is linked to the Delhi Fort terror attacks. Now we will see about the 1267 Sanction Committee. So it is a subsidiary body of the UNSC, and it is charged with overseeing the sanction against the ISIL, which means ISIS, and Al Qaeda associated individuals and the groups. And what is its origin? So it was originated in 1999, and originally it was for the Taliban, right? So it was for the Taliban and to freeze the assets of the Taliban, but after that it is now working for the ISIS and the Al Qaeda, right? And what is the composition? So it comprises of the all the UNSC members. 15 members of the UNSC are part of the this sanctions committee. This is also important, and these decisions are by the consensus. Please remember this fact also. And what are its functions? So generally they impose sanctions and add or exclude the persons from the list. So this is all about the UNSC 1267 Sanctions Committee. Now we'll see the next quick update of the day. And the next quick update of the day is the National Medicinal Plant Board. And what is the development? So the board have completed the 25 years. Now we'll see about the National Medical Plant Board and its headquarters in New Delhi. And when it was originated, so it was established in year 2000, by the government regulation. So it is not by the act, it is by the regulation. Tea board, however, is by the act. So that is the statutory body. And which is the ministry? So Ministry of Ayush is the ministry which is controlling the National Medicinal Plant Board. And who is the chairperson? So Union Minister for the Ayush is the chairperson. And what is the mandate of National Medicinal Plant Board? To promote coordination among the state, center, and the various governments on all matters related to medicinal plants, right? And which are the key initiatives? The very important key initiative is e-Charak portal. Please remember this name. And it is the online market mechanism for the information exchange between the various stakeholders related to medicinal plants. So this is all about this quick update. Now we'll see the next quick update of the day. So next quick update of the day is Mons Mountain, and what it is. So Chandrayaan 4 mission have identified Mons Mountain, a location on the moon to land its lander. So this is the location on the moon. Please remember this fact. And Chandrayaan 4 will be India's fourth mission to the moon, and that will demonstrate the taking of from the lunar surface after collecting surface samples and bringing back to the same to the earth. So it will not just land on the moon, but it will come back to the earth with the samples. So this is very important regarding the Chandrayaan 4. About the Mons Mountain, so it is the mountain near the moon's south pole, known informally as the Ibnis Beta, named after the NASA mathematician, right? So it was by the NASA mathematician Melba Roy Monton, and after this name, the name is given the Mons Mountain. Please remember this fact. And what are the key features? So it is the flat top spanning almost 100 kilometers and rises roughly 6,000 meters above the surrounding terrain. So this is all about the Mons Mountain. Now we'll see the next quick update of the week. And the next quick update of the week is the Bacillus subtilis, and Kerala have become the first state in the country to declare the Bacillus subtilis as the state microbe. Now we'll see about the Bacillus subtilis, and it is a type of prebiotic or the good bacteria found widely in the environment and naturally in the gut of the humans as well as the fermented foods. So it is the good bacteria, and then industrially it is valuable for producing the enzymes such as amylases and proteases, and antibiotics also such as bacillitrecin, and then prebiotics in the agriculture and the livestock feed also. And its grass, which is generally recognized as safe status, makes it suitable for the food and the pharmaceutical application. So this is about Bacillus subtilis. Now we'll see the next quick update, which is the last quick update of the day, and that is the Corruption Perception Index 2025. And this index have been revealing that the worsening global corruption, with the number of countries scoring above 80 dropping from 12 to just 5 in the decade. So people's perception that the countries are becoming more corrupt, right? So let's see about the Corruption Perception Index. Who releases it? So Transparency International releases it. And what is the methodology? So methodology is, it evaluates 182 countries based on the perceived public sector corruption using the scale from 0, which is highly corrupt, to 100, which is very clean, right? Please remember this fact. Then least corrupt nations is Denmark, Finland, and the Singapore. As always, in all the social and other sectors, these countries are on the top. And the most corrupt nations are South Sudan, Somalia, and Venezuela. What about India? So performance about India is that India's rank have increased marginally, and from 96 in 2024 to 91 in 2025. So this is about the last quick update of the day. So this is all about this week's weekly roundup. To read and solve the quizzes, you can also visit Digital Current Affairs portal of the Vision IS, where you can also read various current affairs material. This is all for this week. Thank you. Happy learning.